Party.
Owen Jones, when the deputy leader of the Labour Party is saying something very different to the Labour Party press office, you've got a real problem. He's saying this highlights the deep problems, the deep divisions.
Well, actually, ironically, the opposite. I think Frank Field's probably one of the only Labour MPs who unites both left and right of the Labour Party. Near unanimously, his local Labour activists voted for him to have the whip taken off him. That includes people on the left, pro-Corbyn people. It also includes people on the right, people who call themselves Blairites, because he voted with the Conservative government on their
Tom Watson says this highlights deep divisions.
On the hardcore Brexit plans over the customs union, and that saved Theresa May's government from falling. It's the same, if you like, with Kate Hoey. Kate Hoey represents Vauxhall. Her party, which nominated Liz Kendall, the Blairite candidate in 2015, also voted no confidence and for the whip.
And they say this is a matter of principle. They're representing their constituents, not their Labour members, and they're doing what they believe in, which is what Corbyn did for years.
Well, again, I mean, Labour's position is to accept referendum result. This was about an extreme proposal by the Conservative government on Brexit, on the customs union. But as I've said, this is an issue of him jumping before he was pushed by his own members. Local members have their own democratic right to have a say over who represents them as the local Labour candidate. And just on Frank Field, because we're not hearing from the media his actual record. He himself is somebody who's accused by a Church of England bishop of being like Enoch Powell. He is somebody himself who said Margaret Thatcher was a hero. He himself is somebody.
Let's not have a.
But he says
there's a lot for Louise Ellman to respond to.
He talks about anti-racism, but he has no credibility on the issue.
Louise Ellman, can you respond to what Owen Jones has said?
Yes,
so far?
I think that Owen is following Jeremy Corbyn's line rather too closely. Frank is a very individual person, but he is dedicated to his constituents. He's a fighter against poverty and inequality, and he addresses the very real issues that face his constituents. I have many disagreements with Frank Field on policy. On Brexit, for example, I voted against the Labour whip because I don't think the Labour Party is strong enough to stop Brexit.
But isn't it weird for a man who was so sort of anti our position on immigration to now claim that the Labour Party is seen as racist?
Well, Frank is referring very specifically to anti-Semitism, which is in the Labour Party and not being adequately dealt with. And I hope that this is a wake-up call to Jeremy, whatever he says publicly, to realise he has to act on anti-Semitism and stop playing around with the issue and stop offending the mainstream Jewish community.
Owen Jones.
Well, anti-Semitism is a sickening disease which needs to be driven from the Labour movement and the left. It does exist. On a fringe of the Labour Party. There are some who are in denial about it. There has been action taken.
Well, it exists in the leadership, according to Frank Field.
Well, that's just a slander and a lie. It clearly doesn't. I mean, look, some of the key figures of Jeremy Corbyn's entourage, whether it be John Landsman, who ran his second leadership campaign, James Schneider, one of his key strategists, are themselves proud Jewish socialists. But in any case, it's about Frank Field and his record. And just an example, he talks about anti-racism. You say this is a distraction. No, it isn't.
No, you're deflecting now.
No.
We're talking about anti-Semitism.
No.
We are talking about anti-Semitism. Don't try and change the subject.
He said it's about Labour and racism. No, I'm going to finish this point.
Don't change the subject.
No, I'm not changing the subject. We're talking about his disillusionment with the Labour Party when in 2015, when Ed Miliband was leader, he said to himself, what am I doing in this party on the basis that it was too pro-immigration and not anti-immigration enough? This is a man who felt...
That's the point I just put to Louise
This is a
Ellman.
man who felt disillusioned under Ed Miliband,
I
let
just
alone
put
Jeremy
that point
Corbyn.
to Louise Ellman, Owen.
But Frank Field has taken many individual stances that I indeed would not agree with at all. But this is the moment he's decided to stop being a Labour MP, and he has cited anti-Semitism as one of the key reasons for doing that. Frank has spoken to me on a number of occasions about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and his concern about the failure to deal with it adequately.
But can I just be clear about what you're saying specifically? Because you're saying he's right, but then you're refusing to repeat the allegations in your own words.
I'm saying very clearly that Jeremy Corbyn must, first of all, recognise the extent of the problem of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, but then deal with it and stop offending the mainstream Jewish community, and he simply isn't doing that.
When he says the leadership is a force for anti-Semitism, do you believe that? Do you also believe that?
The leadership is not dealing with the problem of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and it's high time that Jeremy Corbyn, as the leader, recognises the gravity of the problem, stops offending the mainstream Jewish community, and deals with the issue.
Do you
the
accept
current
that?
arguments to do with the international definition of
Owen
anti-Semitism.
Jones.
That's only one issue. It's about dealing with the many, many outstanding allegations of anti-Semitism against individual members of the Labour Party, which are currently just being ignored. That's the key issue.
Owen Jones.
I'm glad anti-Semites are being suspended and driven out the Labour Party. Do I think more action needs to be taken? Yes. I've said that over and over and over again. I think sometimes there has been a collective failure on the left to recognise that seriousness. But I have to say, Frank Field himself, do you know what he said about Keith Joseph, one of Thatcher's closest allies? Not a man I have any truck with. He said himself that he was a leading member of the Jewish community supporting Nazi attitudes towards the poor. There are people at the moment in the Labour Party who are under investigation or have been suspended for those sorts of comments. I don't believe Frank Field has moral authority on this subject. And as I've said, this isn't actually about anti-Semitism. This is a man whose local party members lost confidence from left to right because he propped up Theresa May's government and supported a policy which they are vehemently against, whether they are Blairites or Corbynites.
Owen Jones and Louise Ellman, thank you both very much.